difficult year for the coalition, certainly, Trent. What do you put this down to? A lot of people are saying, look, this is a failure of all major political parties. There's disenchantment within the electorate. You've admitted yourself that you've got to pick up your game, certainly with an election around the corner.
Well, I think there are a couple of things. Firstly, I think we're seeing what is a bit of a global phenomenon in democracies, and the type of ructions that you've seen in Australian politics, you're seeing in the United States or Great Britain at the moment. So there does seem to be something about this age of disruption which is infecting a lot of major political parties around the world. But for us in Australia, I think there's some pretty clear lessons for the Liberal Party out of the events of this year. And firstly and foremost, people want greater stability, they want greater unity shown by the Liberal Party, and there's still obviously a lot of anger about what happened 2 or 3 months ago to Malcolm Turnbull. We live in an age which maybe is not traditional, but we live in an age when people elect a Prime Minister, they expect to be the ones that determine the Prime Minister's fate, and that's why Scott Morrison's changed our own internal rules, for example.
Mehreen, it hasn't been a great time for the Greens either, and with the electorate kind of drifting to many independents. What does that tell you about where the Greens are at the moment, and also about the state of play more widely?
Yes, I might start with the state of play more widely, and I must say, Trent, it's been a dumpster fire of a year for the coalition. I think you've got to say it as it is. I mean, I started in the week in August. It hasn't been easy for us either. But I started in the week on a Monday when there was one Prime Minister, and I left Canberra on Thursday with another Prime Minister. And it really showed me what people have told me the Canberra bubble was. I think that phenomenon was quite clear to me in that first week, that, here was politics being played, internal power plays, and we were having bushfires, we were having the hottest days in summer, we were having the hottest years, there were 100,000 people living on streets, and, political parties are within a power struggle. So I think it was no surprise what happened in Wentworth. And Karen Phelps, as an independent, actually won Wentworth. And I have to say that what she won on were really progressive policies, like, bringing the kids back from Nauru. It was on climate change. It was ending live exports. These are all policies that the Greens have been pushing very hard for. So, I think it's a good thing when progressive independents are there. It's a good thing when there is more democracy and a wide varieties of view in parliaments. I mean, for us, the Greens federally, we've stuck to our policies, we've stuck to our core principles, and we've pushed for them always. Yes, we have had troubles in New South Wales.
You've got your own internal struggles, certainly within New South Wales, where you're from. What is going on there? Is this a battle of ideology within the party? We've seen Jeremy Buckingham essentially kicked out of the party. He resigned, but, I mean, many take that he was ejected from the party. What's going on in New South Wales? Is this a battle between the left and the right, as he's portrayed?
I guess let's be clear. I mean, Jeremy had been asked to resign because of his behaviour, which the Greens, both the Federal Party Room, the New South Wales Greens, our Australian Greens National Council, all agreed that it was behaviour that was not acceptable from someone in a leadership position in the party. Jeremy has an axe to grind now. He's going to run as an independent. So I think what Jeremy says needs to be taken with a pinch of salt.
But he's saying the party is being held hostage by the far left.
No, the party is not being held hostage by anyone. The party is a grassroots party. It was a grassroots decision that was made by the party to ask Jeremy Buckingham to resign. And yes, we have also realized through this process that we have some reviews to do. I think we can improve internal party processes, such as the complaints procedure, which is one example. And we've committed to doing that. And I think that's what's important. Every party faces challenges. Well, we've got to accept them, we've got to acknowledge them, and we've got to do something about them.
Well, Trent, just picking up there on something that Mehreen said, it wasn't only progressive policies that won Karen Phelps the Wentworth by-election. It was the fact that the community rose up and said, we're not happy about the way that our Malcolm Turnbull was treated. We're seeing a lineup of independents forming in Warringah against Tony Abbott, and this drift. I mean, how can you, as a party, regroup in the very short amount of time that you have in 2019 to fight this election?
Well, the first thing that has to be said is that the starting point is listening to what the community is telling us.
But people say we should have done that ages ago.
Indeed, and people say that we shouldn't have changed Prime Minister, and I was one of those at the time. But I think you're right that in Wentworth there was a great deal of anger about what happened to Malcolm, but there were some that argued that Wentworth was a one-off. I think Victoria showed that wasn't the case, and there is obviously a clear lesson for us that firstly they want stability, they don't want Prime Ministers in that revolving door that's affected both us and the Labor Party before us. But more importantly, they want the Liberal Party to be where it should be, and that's in the sensible centre of Australian politics. We have a great economic narrative, we have great success in the way in which the economy is running, but Australians also want us to be concerned about things like the environment and climate change as well.
Mehreen, do you feel as though there is a general drift in the Australian community towards independence? Not just independence, but women.
I hope that there is a shift towards women. We have seen this year as well the sexism that has played out in Parliament. You know, I sit there in the Senate and I also see the rhetoric of hate and real divisiveness and division that is created as well by some in the highest office. So I'm hoping that 2019 will be a year where people actually see hope, and we kind of try and envision a society which is built on kindness and compassion. I do think that, you can look at the past history of the few years as well. It's not just the independents, like the Greens won from the Liberals. We won in 2015 Ballina from the National Party, and Lismore is looking very close for the Greens. So I think people do want to see a different kind of politics, but I actually think that minority governments are a good thing, unlike what the two major parties tell us.
I will disagree with that.
Yeah, well, that's fine. I'm sure you would, and you have, because it does give other voices, and you really have to have a real debate. You just don't have to, push policy through because you have the numbers. You have to prove that the policy is based on some sort of evidence, really.
But it is an important point about the consequence of where this heads, and we do have a hybrid Westminster system, and I think that we do need to reflect on what it would mean for governance in Australia if you saw the House of Representatives full of independent members. I just don't know how Parliament or the government would function. I actually think we've got a good system. You've got a lower house which traditionally, desirably, has majority party government, and a Senate which is proportionally elected, where you do get a reflection of outside the major parties, and I think that falls apart a bit if independents do too well in the lower house, to be honest.
All right, well, the Australian public will make their decision.
They will indeed.
They will indeed, absolutely.
Trent Zimmerman, Mehreen Faruqi, thanks so much.
Thank you so much for having us. Cheers.